Mary Nestor is a leadership strategist, speaker, and author of Say It Now, Say It Right, and Bus Number 7. She challenges leaders to stop avoiding hard conversations and start leading with clarity and courage. Mary's work focuses on eliminating workplace drama, addressing conflict in real time, and building teams rooted in accountability and trust. Known for her direct, no nonsense style, she equips leaders to say what needs to be said when it needs to be said because high performing teams aren't built on silence. I love it. Mary, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much, Marcus. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to this because so many of my clients, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but so many leaders I work with just let things fester for a long time before having a conversation. So I can't wait to dig into that. And you can help me with some more tools to use with my
Great.
clients. And by the way, maybe help the audience too. That'd be kind of nice. But before we dive into the specifics of the book, Mary, what do you believe is the one most important characteristic of a great leadership team?
That is a great question. I started a new series on LinkedIn called Real Talk at Work. And so I'm addressing some of these different situations. But the one that today I just published today is all about inclusiveness. And not just, sometimes leadership teams can pull in the wagons and they make all the decisions, they have the discussions, and they don't include all the stakeholders, the people, the SMEs, the people that are actually doing the work. And you miss so much when you do that. And leaders that are willing to not only invite them to the table before the decisions are made, but they listen and they take into consideration the expertise that these individuals have. I've done many projects with companies that like operators, and I did a project with Monsanto in their chemical plant, and working with all of the operators was so interesting. And they would come in and say, oh my, they just put in a new computer system. We knew it wasn't going to work and it's a mess, but nobody asked us. And so I think that your leadership team is maybe a very small group of people, but actually your leaders are everywhere.
It's such
Every individual in your organization is a leader. They are the experts. The guy who runs the whatever, he's doing, from the shop floor to being a first level manager, they're the experts because they're closest to the company, the operations, the customers. And so you need those people into your leadership team. You need them at the table before you make all the decisions. And I think that probably is the most inclusiveness.
Really important. And I see all the time leaders, not only do you get better information that way, but you start to find out who your next high potential leaders are down through the organization if you're actually listening to them. So I love that. So I want to dive in, and somehow I think we're going to wind up curving back into that theme over time in our discussion. But I really want to focus on your book, Say It Now, Say It Right. And give me a little background on why you decided to write that book. Why did you think it was an important book to write?
I'll give you just a little bit of background, or I did that, but I'm from a large family living in Gary, Indiana, and we didn't really talk to each other very much. The unwritten rule in our family was like, keep your mouth shut and don't ask questions and don't rock the boat. And so I never really had a very good role model of how to handle discussions or speaking out or anything like that. So I grew up like that. And then I went through growing up and getting my degree and all that. And I got my first management job working for Marriott. And I had no clue how to manage people. I didn't know how to talk to people. And I had a very good manager. She was a director for Marriott. She was in training, and we were in the benefits department. And so I did my best, but I thought I was a great manager. I had 6 people that were reporting to me. And so one day she brought me into her office. She says, Mary, I need to talk to you. And so I came into her office and she sat me down and she said, Mary, people don't want to work for you. They don't like you. They're afraid of you. I said, what?
Wow.
I mean, I was shocked. And she said, yeah, the way you talk to people, you're always micromanaging them. They say that you're always looking for things they're doing wrong and always looking over their shoulder. And I had no idea. I thought I was just the best. I was doing my best job. And that was a real wake up for me. And I respected her so much. And this is the other thing about listening. You have to be able to listen to people on either side. And she could have fired me, but she didn't. She must have seen something in me that was worth developing. And so she kind of took me under her wing. She got me involved in all kinds of things, let me do some training and speaking while I was at the job. And that impression stuck with me forever. And later on, I was still at the same job, and I had a opportunity to do a presentation for some managers, my first time. I got all set, and I gave my presentation, and everybody was smiling at me and wonderful and everything. I got back afterwards, went in the ladies' room, and I noticed I had a piece of broccoli stuck in my tooth. And I was horrified. So I went to my assistant, and I said, can't believe I gave this presentation. She goes, I know. I said, you knew it was there and you didn't say anything? She said, I was embarrassed. I thought it would fall out, And that was another reason why I wrote this book, is because people do things and they have no idea what they're doing. And they could be hurting themselves professionally or personally. And if nobody tells you, if nobody is kind enough to say something, we all pull back and say, oh, I can't say anything because I'm going to hurt their feelings, or they're going to be mad at me, or there'd be some repercussions for me. But the kindest thing you could do, like my manager for me, to tell me what she needed to say, and for my assistants to say, hey, get that out of your tooth before you do your presentation. And also my experiences in management, in human resources. I spent many years as an HRD for different organizations over the years. And employees coming to me and complaining about their managers and their boss, and I can't stand my boss, or I can't work with this person anymore. And I would, have you talked to them about it? Oh, I can't do that. And those kind of things for myself, and then just getting the feedback from employees over the years, so important. The nicest thing, the kindest thing you can do is to have that conversation, because most people aren't aware of what they're doing.
What is it specifically? And you ran through a couple of them quickly, but I want to dive into it. What is it that holds people back from speaking in those critical moments? Because I don't know a lot of people that truly believe you shouldn't speak up. Like when I confront them with it, I get it. I should have said something. I shouldn't have waited this long. But so many of us, and I say us because I have fallen victim to it as well, so many of us hold back. What are some of the reasons, the big reasons you've seen why people hold back at those, especially at those critical moments?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes they happen when there's a lot of people around. And so you go, that's not the right time. I don't want to say anything. It could be that, again, I'm afraid to say anything because I'm going to hurt their feelings, or they're going to be angry with me, or it's going to hurt me professionally. If I speak up, I may not get that promotion, or I might be shoved aside somewhere, or I don't know how to do it. A lot of times people will be in a situation and they get mad and they get angry, and then they blurt something out, which is the wrong thing. And if you've done that a couple of times, you're probably very shy about keep my mouth shut, especially if you've had repercussions in the past. Some people just don't know how to do it. Or in the past, like myself, I never had any experience in that kind of conversation with anyone. And so I just didn't know, I didn't feel comfortable saying anything. And fear is, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO, the top president, or anything. It's just, everybody, I think, struggles with this kind of thing. And mostly it's not knowing how to do it right. How do I break the ice? What do I need to do to make it not sound like a judgment against you? Or how do I have people listen to me?
So let's talk about both of those things, kind of the fear piece, and then we'll talk about the how. And I want to start off with the fear. And I think sometimes, although it's not the only way, sometimes the way to get over that fear is to kind of understand the cost of not speaking up and realizing how costly it can be. So obviously you talk a lot in the book and the work you do about the danger of not speaking up in the moment. What are the biggest costs of leaders either never speaking up or actually, maybe I'll separate this out. I want to
Okay.
understand then two things because I've seen both. One is what's the cost of a leader never speaking out? And if you believe it's different, what's the cost of speaking out but waiting too long to do it? Because I've seen both with some different ripple effects.
Okay. So the first one you said is speaking out, or just
The
keeping
first one
silent,
is
saying anything at
what's
all,
the cost of not speaking out at all?
not speaking out. Oh, there's so many for leaders. First of all, silence is also communication. So if you don't say anything and things are going wrong, or you've got an employee that needs to, bad performance, or you never bring it up, they're going to feel they would think everything is great, everything is wonderful. So they don't know, and what they don't know is going to hurt you and for the organization. And the worst part of it is that everybody else knows. And so your team is sitting there and you're not saying anything, and this person is saying a meeting, they're hogging the meeting, and they won't shut up. And you're just sitting there and you're not saying anything, you're not managing it. Well, the rest of everybody else around the table is like, there they go again. You can't speak up. And you're losing credibility. You're losing believability. You don't have that. You're not coming off as a leader. And they want somebody to take over and solve this problem. And so a lot of employees just feel like they're left adrift. If they don't have a leader that's going to help they want you to have their back. And that's not my place at sitting at the table to tell this person to shut up and let somebody else have the floor. It's the leader's job to do that. And if they won't do it, everybody suffers. It's frustration. You just want to go somewhere else. You just don't want to go to that meeting. And that's not going to, first of all, this person doesn't, if you don't take action and help this person be quiet and let everybody else participate, you're missing out on so many ideas and so many great ideas that somebody else around the table would have, but they don't feel like they can speak up. It has so many repercussions, like dropping a pebble in the pool. It just goes out. And after a while, people get frustrated, then they feel like they've been abandoned. I don't want to go to the meeting.
So speaking of this idea of giving someone feedback, either in a group or one-on-one, and in your case, they're talking too much at meetings. What are you doing about it? So here's where I want to talk about not just the cost of not speaking up, but the cost of waiting too long and speaking up. And I'll give you a little example that I'd love you to just take it and run with it in however you've seen it, is specifically around delayed feedback. So if there is, and I'm gonna go with your example of someone that just talks too much in a meeting, they're hogging the meeting. Is if that happens once and you pull them aside during a break or after the meeting, say, hey, you're talking a lot. I want to give folks another, you can do that. And it's probably not going to feel like you've dropped a bomb on the other person if you say it right. And I want to talk to you about the how, certainly during our discussion, but it's probably not going to feel like you've dropped a big bomb on them. But when I talk about delaying that conversation, having it, but doing it 6 months later, and saying for the last 6 months, you have just talked so much in these meetings. Now, to me, when that happens, it feels like you have dropped a bomb on this other person. Like, oh my God, this has been going on for, I've had broccoli in my teeth for 6 months and no one has ever told me about the broccoli. What have you seen on that cost of delayed feedback, delayed communication? What impact does that have?
It has impact for the person and also for the leader. If you come back after 6 months and you're going to tell somebody they got broccoli in their teeth, why didn't you tell me? You don't have that much respect for me? You let this go on for so long? In other words, you're participating in all of this. You let me go on for 6 months and you never let me know? Did you do that on purpose? Were you trying? Then you don't trust that person at all. I wouldn't trust a manager that waited that long to tell me about something, because for 6 months now, I've been made a fool of, or I could have improved. Do you really care about me? Do you really not? Why are you telling me now? I would be very suspicious. And once trust is gone, it's very difficult to get that back. You just wouldn't trust anyone. I wouldn't. So for that person, they're going to lose their respect for their manager. They probably lose their incentive for performance. They really don't care about the organization. They're not going to be a high performer, or they're not going to trust you later on either. So then now you're going to ask them to do a big project, or I'm going to give you this help. Oh, right. You surely will. You're just not believable anymore. And I think that's probably the worst thing that ever happened to a leader, is that people don't trust you. They have to trust you. It's better to have that conversation right away. And the way you form it, where you do it, how you phrase it, and everything like that is so important. But you can't wait. You can't wait. Again, silence is communication. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. And you let me do that? You let me do this wrong for 6 months before you told me? And now you're coming in? I would say, why did you do that? What was your motive?
Yeah, I love the message. You've used it a couple of times, and I actually wrote it down because I love it, is this idea of silence is communication.
It's communication.
Like if you think, I haven't communicated anything to them about it yet. Yes, you have. Silence is communication. So I love that. The other thing, in terms of the cost of this, and maybe this is me just planting the seed in your head as you listen to this as a leader. Mary, not your head. I don't think you need this seed, but the listener, I think, does, is the idea of when in the moment you feel like you need to tell somebody something. Maybe it's feedback. Maybe it's a decision that you've made that may be a difficult discussion. Maybe you're disagreeing with their point of view. But I guess I'll continue to use feedback as an example. If something happens in a meeting and I have a piece of feedback for you, and I hold off for fear of the uncomfortable conversation, and let's be honest, what I've seen is it's not really that you're fearful how they're going to take it. You're fearful about how it's going to make you feel having that conversation.
Or how it's going to make you look.
Right. But if you hold off on that, every minute, every day, every week that you're holding off, that conversation gets harder and harder to have. Because if 6 months later you say, Mary, you've had broccoli in your teeth for 6 months, right, that's a difficult message for me to send. Oh my God, she's going to kill me that I knew 6 months ago, as opposed to looking you in the meeting and raising a hand and going, Mary, like in the meeting, or at least pulling you aside real quickly. So I think that's the other thing, is the longer you wait, the harder it gets to have that difficult discussion.
And what the impetus to finally have that conversation is usually because somebody higher than you, like your manager, sits you down and says, hey, this has been going on. I've been hearing about this for 6 months. Why haven't you done anything about it? Then you go, oh, I guess I better do something. So then you go, and you're looking bad, not only to your team, but to whoever you report to. I mean, there's a lot to lose. And that's usually what happens to a manager or a leader who waits and waits and waits. Somebody else gets on them. Yeah. And so it's bad on both. You're kind of squeezed in between two bad situations.
Yeah. It's either someone else tells them, or the problem just gets so bad you don't have a choice. And why would you want to wait till it gets that bad? Now, I want to get into, from this idea of fear and the cost of doing it and the mindset, I want to move into more of the how. And mindset is a big part of the how too. But you say in your book that you've got to check your motive first. That before speaking, you've got to examine your own intent or your thoughts about the other person. Talk about that a little bit. What does that mean, that you've got to check your motive first?
Okay. Oh, your motive. Why are you confronting this problem in the first place? Or why are you saying it now? Or why are you saying it this way? Because you should always come from a place of building up and helping somebody improve their performance, never to tear down. And there's a lot of different, I worked as an HRD at an organization, and I was told by the secretary of the president of the company, I reported to him. And she's told me, she says, watch out for him because he likes to pit people against each other and then watch and see what happens. So I thought, wow. And so motive, you talk about motive. This is kind of the way he operated. you never want to take advantage of a situation to make somebody else look small or to embarrass them in front of everyone or to, in desperation or exasperation, you finally blurt it out at the wrong place, the situation or something that they need to improve on. It's just so important for your heart to be right, because if you can have the right words, you can have the best situation, the best setting, but if your heart isn't right, it doesn't matter. It's never going to come off as something that's you're trying to help someone improve their performance. It's not going to come off that way.
When you talk about your heart being right, one is your own motive, but talk a little bit about if I'm about to have a discussion with you at a critical moment, a difficult discussion, how important is it for me in my own heart to, how do I want to say this? How important is how I'm thinking about you, right? So if someone is being a pain in the ass in a meeting and I think they're always doing this, they're just trying to throw a wrench in. If that's what I think of you, when I confront you, my attitude is probably not going to be one that is most conducive to us solving the problem if I think you're being a jerk on purpose. So talk a little bit about how should we be thinking about the other person when we're having this difficult conversation or giving this difficult feedback.
Okay. Maybe I can give you an example from my own perspective. So I was working at an organization, it was a nonprofit, and my boss was a nice guy. He was an accountant. I'm the HR creative person, and he's this numbers guy. So anyway, whenever you would go into his office, he didn't have any chairs for you to sit in. And he did that on purpose because he didn't want people hanging out in his office. So if you went in, you had to stand there in front of his office as he's sitting in his big, nice leather chair. And a couple of minutes was no big deal. But if the conversation went on, it just was rude to me that I had to stand up in front of his desk while he was sitting down the whole time. That really got me mad. And so anyway, I thought about that. And if I had talked to him, said something at that moment, I might have said, hey, this is really rude to make you stand here. So I didn't. That was not the right time. And my heart was not right. I was too angry. So I went back and I thought about that. And one of the things there's 3 components, and we'll probably talk about that to make it work. But that was not the right setting. My heart wasn't right. And I would have blurted out something that would be the wrong words. And so I waited and went back and did my thing. But every time I went into the office to talk to him, it would just come right back up again. So it wasn't too long after that, he was in my office and sitting down, and we were both sitting down. I have chairs in my office. HR has to have chairs. So we were talking about something else, and we finished our conversation. He says, oh, Mary, is there anything else that you need to talk about? Bingo. So I said, there is something that's been bothering me lately, and can I discuss that with you now? See, that is the other thing, too. You ask permission. Because he said, sure. And so we talked about it, and he had no idea how I felt. He didn't realize that it was rude. And he said, but he admitted that he doesn't have chairs in there, but he has a table with chairs around it. So I said, the other thing you need to do, if you don't like the behavior of someone, you need to tell them what your expectation is. Don't just leave it out there with nothing. So I said, when I come in, it's just a couple of minutes. It's not a big deal. I says, but if it goes on for a while, maybe we can move over to the table and continue our discussion. He goes, that's a great idea. So after that, it was almost like a joke. So I would go and he goes, do we need to sit down yet? But see how that changed? That changed the relationship. That changed the situation. I was able to, at the right time, and see, he was in my office. See, he was in my little domain, which made a difference. And I asked him, can we talk about this? And of course, they're going to say yes most of the time. Or if they say no, then you table it for another time. And so we had a great conversation. And when I left, he gave me a card and was very nice. And he said, Mary, thank you so much for showing me the human side of business. And to me, that was just the highest compliment I could have gotten. Because he's not a touchy-feely guy, Mr. CFO, but that's what you gain When you can have these conversations and when you can confront people and you can solve problems and find and it just changes. It's life-changing. I've said this before. When you can finally have that conversation, it's not just the other person or solving the problem. It's your self-esteem. You feel more confident. You feel more relaxed. People are more relaxed around you. And it can't help. It can't but just lift everybody up. So after that, we were just like a different kind of a team.
That's amazing.
That's what happens.
Yeah, and you alluded to this earlier, but part of it's the idea of redefining what being nice is. Like you
Yes.
could have avoided that conversation and thought, I'm going to be nice, I'm not going to say anything. But that was probably the nicest thing you can do, because my guess is that impacted not just how he treated you when you walked into his office, but probably everyone else.
Everyone else, yeah. Yeah, you make people aware. Awareness that's part of it too. It's not that you want to tell people what they're doing wrong, is that most people don't have a clue. They just don't realize what they're doing or what's going on or how other people are reacting or what their actions or inactions are doing to them for their own reputation or to the organization or for the team. They just don't know it. And the nicest thing you can do is to say it now, say it right, and let them know. From the point of you wanted, by the time we had that conversation, I was calm and I wanted him to know because other people felt that way. And so, and you're right. Afterwards, it was a different kind of relationship with a lot of people that were on his team because he could know that. And plus he thanked me. I mean, if somebody tells you that you got the broccoli in the teeth, thank you so much. Instead of letting it go for 6 months.
That metaphor, I'm going to use that metaphor forevermore. Like someone's holding back on a conversation. I'm going to be like, if they had broccoli in their teeth for 6 months, would you not say anything? Let's dive into an example, and maybe you could help figure like what are those 3 steps if it starts with the setting and asking for permission. Let's make this practical. So let's imagine that we are both on a leadership team. And I'm going to say that neither of us is the CEO. And I'm saying that purposefully because I don't think it always needs to be the leader of the leaders that is confronting someone. It could be anyone around the leadership table. But let's say we're both on a leadership team, and one of our core values as a company is all about respect. And you and I am behaving in a way that is disrespectful in meetings. I am interrupting people. I'm putting people down in and outside the meeting. I'm doing something that was pretty visible in there, and you're a member of the team, and you believe it's impacting the team, it's impacting you, it's impacting me. What would you do? Again, I'm that person who's acting up and being a little disrespectful. As a member of the leadership team, using your process, how should you confront that?
Okay. The first component is timing, is say it now. And say it now doesn't always mean say it right now, but sometimes it does. So if we were in a meeting, I mean, I'll give you a couple of scenarios that you could do so you've said something, you maybe insulted someone. And I could say, gee, Mike, that sounded a little bit like you were being critical. Is that what you were doing? Ask a question. I didn't say what you were doing. I just asked a question. Okay, at that moment. You could also, afterwards, you could come and say, I have something that I need to share with you that could be hurting your effectiveness in the team. Can I do that? And you may say, okay, what is it? And then you can confront it, just the two of you together. But the way breaking the ice is so important. How do I do that? You don't just say, boy, you were a jerk in that meeting. See, that's judgmental. That's not coming from a place where you want to build somebody up. Okay. So you could say it immediately, or say if you were saying something in the meeting that I totally disagreed with, and you said, this is the way it should be, and this is the way it should be, and I could say, I see things differently. I'd like to share my thoughts.
If you
So
did,
you don't put, yeah, you don't put the other person down.
so let's go. I want to take a little further. So in the scenario where I was being disrespectful in some way,
Okay.
and you pulled me aside after the meeting and said, tell me again how you would introduce him, but give me a sense when, again, in the scenario where you pull me aside after the meeting, what is that? What's your objective? And are there a set of steps you're taking to have that conversation? Like, let's kind of play that through. How would you have that discussion? You said it starts with a question.
Yeah. Because you're going to say, you could walk in there. Okay, say, what if I walked in your office or something? We pulled you aside and said, hey, you act like a jerk in there. I need to talk to you about that. So how are you going to,
Yeah, I'm going to get incredibly defensive and act
Good.
probably more like a jerk.
Right. And so you're closed off. You're not going to listen to anything. And you could come, and then I could say, the motive would be, say, if I was in that situation, it's embarrassing for me to sit there and watch that. Because everybody else, because you're embarrassed with the person because you know that everybody else can't stand them. And so how do you convey that to somebody? You could say, I really care about you. You are so effective in your management team, but there's something that I have observed that looks like it could be hurting you, your effectiveness in the meetings. Can I share that with you?
Sure.
And then, then I can say, you're always interrupting. It seems like you're always interrupting people. And I'm looking at, for me, so then tell how it affects you. For me, it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you because I know that everybody else is taking time out of the meeting. It's using up my time where we could be having a better discussion. And so I just wanted to share that with you. And maybe you could tone it down a little bit. What do you think? Then ask them, what do you think? So what are some of the ways you could respond and say, wow. Or I just have to say what I have to say. I'm in the meeting too. And you could say, yes, you are in the meeting too. I'm also in the meeting. And so I would like to be able to share my ideas, but if you take so much time away, then it's not enough time for everybody to share. See, I'm coming from my truth. I'm coming from my own thoughts about how it's affecting me. I'm not saying you.
And how it's affecting you and me, and how it's affecting the team as well.
Exactly. That, and this is my observation. Yeah. And they may say, whatever, and turn around. And that's the thing, is that you have to say what you have to say from a place of building up and the right timing and the right words and body language. That all goes along with it, and the right setting. But you have to kind of give up the end result. You have no control over that. You don't have any control over how Mike is going to take my intervention or my comments. You may go, and I cover this in the book, you're going to get lots of different kinds of responses. Because people sometimes they'll go, whatever, and turn around. They're thinking about it. Because nobody's ever confronted them before. Or they've never really thought about it. Or nobody's ever told them. And you have to kind of trust. And that's where that motive thing comes from. You have to know that your heart is right, that you really want to have people improve. If there's so many instances, and we all know it, I've been in business and management teams forever, and there's a lot of people in there who just want to put you down so they can look better.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is a few
sabotage or something like that, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing a few things that I just want to highlight that are super important that you're saying. One is you've got to go into it with your heart in the right place. Right. Your heart in terms of your own motivation and what you believe their motivations are. So what I'm hearing is a few things I want to highlight as being important. One is your heart's got to be in the right place, right? In terms of your intent, but your belief in the other person's intent. Because if you go in and your attitude is, I just got to tell this guy he's being a jerk, you're not getting anywhere. So if you go in with your heart in the right place, as you said before, you're asking permission to have the conversation. And what I heard too is you're going into that conversation with curiosity. You're asking the question. Do they realize they're behaving that way? Do they understand the impact it has? Do they have any ideas on how they might improve it? And if your heart's in the wrong place, you're not really going to have that curiosity. You're just going to be angry and frustrated with the other
Yeah.
person. So I think that's a
You're going to
great
say
way.
things you wish you didn't.
Yeah. And you're going to make the situation worse and not better. So
Yeah. And if your intent is to embarrass somebody, you're going to say it. And this goes to say it now, say it right. You're going to do it in front of other people. You're going to do it in the meeting and say,
I'll show
hey,
them.
I'll show them. And you'll bring it up. Or it'll be like a sideways, like the sniper. I said, people like the snipers hide in the shadows and they boop. And you can do that too. One of my posts on LinkedIn was about microaggression. These little jabs that people give each other. And that's just, it's never going to come off right. Plus, you are damaging your own reputation. So when I sign my books, I always say, find your voice, take a risk, and speak your truth. And that kind of sums it, because this is my voice. If I feel frustrated or I think something is rude, that's my impression. So my voice is to speak what I feel, how I see things. And then you take a risk because I'm going to speak up and say something. And then, so your heart is right. Find the right timing and the right words and body language, and then keep your motive clean.
For the leader, or let's even say the CEO listening, that is thinking, I don't have an individual communication problem, or we have a culture on our team, or maybe even in our company, we have a culture of avoiding the tough conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Where should that leader or leadership team start? Are there a couple of practical steps that they can take to build more of a culture of saying what needs to be said in the right way at the right time?
Yeah. First, they don't have to model it. But I have a couple of exercises that I used. We did a culture change for a technical college in Augusta when I was doing my consulting work. And the president of the company he said, Mary, I'm the worst one here because it's my way or the highway. And so but he really wanted to make some changes. And so we did this in meetings, and it was a way of getting people, opening up conversations so that everybody has a voice and everybody has a change. So one of them, and these are really simple, so you can do this tomorrow with your teams. So you get, in the beginning of the meeting, you give everybody 2 pennies. And you say, we're going to have this conversation. So you can speak up, but when you do, you hand in a penny. And so then you have to wait, or your 2 cents, and then you have to wait until everybody else has said before you say something again. And that encourages everybody to speak up. And also everybody gets a turn. So that's a very simple thing. And it'd be a fun icebreaker in the beginning of a meeting to see, because that really opens up a lot of conversations and a lot of discussion. The second one that we did is everybody got 3 sheets of paper, like a traffic light, red, yellow, and green. And so if you're having a discussion about something, you have to make a decision. So you've had your discussion back and forth, everybody's yelling at each other or whatever. And so he's, okay, we're going to make a decision now. We're going to do this or this. And so a lot of times we will say a vote, or the people who's the loudest at the table and the rest of them are shrinking back and they're not saying anything, which is a terrible way to make a decision. So you would say, okay, in the middle of the table, if you totally agree with this decision, 100% put your green card out. If you can, it's not your best decision, but I can live with it and I will support it, you get your yellow card out there. If you totally disagree, 100% the red card. So everybody puts their cards out. If there's any red cards, you have to continue talking.
Interesting. I like
so
that.
So you continue talking until you got either green or yellows. It doesn't have to be all green. But see, everybody is putting their own, they're saying how they feel. It's not, so you don't have to wonder about, oh, Joe, who never speaks up in the meeting. And by the way, I had a manager that if you were invited to a meeting and after the second time, you never said anything, you didn't participate, you didn't get invited anymore.
Yeah.
Because what good are you at the meeting if you're not sent to say anything? So it was a really effective way of doing that. And for the person who has reservations, and you want those people in your meetings, you want them there because they may have an insight or a perspective that nobody else has that could be a total disaster. And so you want to not shut them up. You want them to give you their views and understand them. And so you want to come to the place where, again, where everybody's green or yellow. And the yellow is important because even though I don't totally support it, I don't totally agree with it, I am making the commitment that I'm going to support it. So
I like
everybody
that.
puts their cards on the table.
I like that. Two things I've seen and done. One I do all the time, and one I'm just thinking of now, and I haven't done it in years. But the thing I do all the time with leadership teams is I'm a very big user of flip charts and Post-it notes. And when there is a question for the group to answer, I don't just dive in and have the discussion, because there are going to be people that are going to hog the discussion and other people that like to sit back, and the people that sit back may never be heard. Everybody puts what they think on a Post-it note. It goes up on the flip chart, and we
Yeah.
talk through all that. So that's a way to make sure everybody gets heard. And then that's the one I do all the time. The one I'm thinking of now that I probably haven't done in 10 years is sometimes the reason why people don't get heard is because other people talk too much. So
Right.
the way to deal with that is I used to make for my teams a sign. It was like a laminated sign. And on one side of the sign, it said sold. Sold meant shut up. We understand what you're saying. Stop talking about it. So people just put up a sold sign. And on
Sold
the other side, it said tangent. If you were going off on a tangent that was taking us off of what we needed to talk about, you'd hold up the tangent. And that's so the sold and tangent sign really helped in a way that was a little
like
bit
that.
more tactful than shut up, you're talking too much. It was a way, and people would giggle a little about it like you are, which was good because it was a way of, in a nicer way, to tell people to shut up, either the sold or tangent. So I found that was kind of an interesting
Yeah.
tool, and I'll probably go to my closet and find those signs again. I haven't used them in a while.
Yeah. And they're just subtle ways of, and they're not going to embarrass anybody. It's just that we've all kind of decided to do that. And I would ask the CEOs or managers, leaders that are listening, is if you have a meeting about something and you're asking for ideas, and afterwards, after the meeting, somebody pulls you aside and says, I have this really good idea. This happens. Or they send you a text message or, I didn't get a chance to say this. You've got a problem. Because people they either don't feel comfortable speaking up in the group, or there is not the opportunity. The meeting is out of control. Or you're not available. Or you're not listening to everybody. Or sometimes there are certain stars that come in the meeting, depending on levels or whatever. And that's all the old people that are listened to or that are asked for opinions. And so if that's happening to you after a meeting and people are coming up later to say, I've got something, then there's a problem.
Agreed. Yeah.
You-
The
how do
meeting
you
after
get-
the meeting.
The meeting after the meeting. And it's not just that the idea wasn't expressed for everyone so that they could then contribute to it. It's just that there's a lot that are never going to be said. Nobody else is going to hear them. And they won't have an opportunity to vote on them, or let's discuss that, or maybe that's a better idea. The other thing I've said, and this can be a little difficult, but you should have somebody in your meeting who's sort of a devil's advocate. If you've got a bunch of yes people, it says, oh, yeah. They're always saying yes to you. And then in their heads, they're saying, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. Somebody can say, and the person you choose could be the one who's usually the most vocal, and say, well, listen, we don't want to just everybody say yes right away, but think of some things that could possibly happen that would be detrimental to the company, or this wouldn't work, or have another point of view. This is the time to speak it out. Maybe you could do that with your Post-it notes. Everybody
Absolutely.
finds something. What's a reservation you might have about this? So what do you think might happen if we do it or don't do it? And then you've got all that discussion that pulls it out. And as you go along, you become that leader, that manager, that CEO or whatever, that wants to hear. I want to know. I'm not afraid to let people talk. That's how you show that you value people. You value them for what they do. And that was the whole point of my Real Talk at Work today, is that people who do the job are the experts. If you want to know about you having bad customer service, numbers, ask the people on the front desk. Bring them in. Get your Goldman in there. They can tell you. Those are the people. Value people. That's how you ask them the question, what have we missed?
Mary, this is such an important topic, and the book is such an important book. Where should people go if they want to find out more about you and how to work with you? If they want to get your book, where's the best place for people to go?
Okay. They can go. The book is available on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. Could be in your bookstore. So you can buy the book there. It's Kindle and paperback. This is what it looks like. Ta-da! Say it now, say it right. And it was published translated into Spanish by Penguin Random House, picked it up. And came out in March of last year. So you can get that. So the Kindle version is not audio yet, but we're going to do an audio version of the book. It has, right now, people are using it in different ways. It's a great gift. A lot of people are buying this for any new employees that come in. I have one organization that gets one for all their interns. It's a great first step to learning how from the very beginning on how to talk to people and not let those moments go by. It also has discussion questions and lots of fill in the blanks so that you can use it for training. Some are using it for communications training. And of course, I do training and also coaching, executive coaching on communications. And I'd like to offer for your listening audience, if you buy 250 copies of my book, I would be more than happy to do an hour Zoom meeting with your leadership team on discussion or a coaching session. So there's lots of ways to do that. And you can find me. My website is my name. It's maryjnestor.com. And that's how you can find me also on Facebook as Mary J. Nestor author and on LinkedIn. So please look me up on LinkedIn and catch the latest issue of Real Talk at Work.
Take her up on that. Great stuff. I always say if you want a great company, you need a great leadership team. Mary, thanks for helping us get there today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.